So I will start recording then.
Well, inevitably, when you get older, you miss things, so I can go back and watch it and see what I didn't hear right the first time.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely true. Well, I'll welcome everybody. I'll start sharing my screen. I'm Linda Melville. I recognize many names, but not every single name. I work in the Global Education Office, and my colleague Melissa, you want to say who you are, Melissa?
Hi, everybody. My name is Melissa Aragon. I work with Linda as an international admissions representative. So I'm excited to put some names to faces and some, if not live faces, some beautiful headshots. So hi, everybody.
Yeah. I still haven't figured out how to put my headshot on the screen. So I'm going to start sharing now. We're here, in case you're in the wrong meeting or you're Zoom bombing, we're here to talk about international student issues for you guys as graduate administrators. And we are both Melissa and I work in the Global Education Office. If you don't know GEO is has 5 different units within it. So we have International Admissions and Recruitment, which is Melissa's unit. We have International Student and Scholar Services, which is my unit. We have the CELAC program, which is the Center for English Language and American Culture. That is an intensive English program that is full-time, non-transcripted. We have Education Abroad, of course, sending US students abroad. And then we have a global programs unit that runs our passport office and deals with university-wide agreements and also short-term programming. So we're a pretty large office with different functions, and you may intersect with us in a lot of different ways. But today we're here mainly to talk about international student issues, either from the admissions perspective or from the student services perspective. So this is our coordinates. We are pretty much mostly virtual. We do have some hours for picking up and dropping off documents. So we're in Mesa Vista Hall, just north of the Health Center. Our main website is geo.unm.edu. Our main email is geo@unm.edu. That's our phone number, and we're Monday through Friday answering the phone. If you want to schedule an appointment to drop off something in person, or if you want to meet with an advisor virtually, you go to that Calendly link, which is, it offers you several different options as a student to make a phone appointment or a Zoom appointment, to apply for optional practical training, work permission, different things. So that link is also right on our website, and I'll send out the slides after we're done so that you guys have all of these things along with some bullet points. Admissions and recruitment has, I don't know, Melissa, do you want to talk about this slide?
Yeah, so we've had some exciting changes in the last few months or so. Many of you have worked with Janine. She has moved on to better and brighter things. And so we've recently welcomed Mason Knight as a staff member of our office to kind of help with the coordination and a lot of the processing. So you'll be hearing from him soon. He actually just started this week, so we're very excited for that. Beyond that, it's Pablo Torres, who's the director, Charlotte Saavedra and I, who I'm sure you've been in contact with many times. Charlotte is in the office, so she is reachable by phone, but we're always available via our shared email address, and that's goglobal@unm.edu. We did recently launch a new website, and that's international.unm.edu. The Global Education Office is in the phase of updating all of their departments' websites. So while geo.unm.edu is still active, we're still kind of working on tying them together. So we have 2 sites that are available now. One you can access through geo.unm.edu, and then the new one, which will be phased into that soon, is just international.unm.edu. If you or students are interested in meeting with one of the advisors virtually, we do have a Calendly especially for that, and that's the Calendly link below. You'll get this presentation, so you'll have access to that, and it's also available on our website.
Great. And then the International Student and Scholar Services team is my team. We have Philip, Carolyn, Yvette, and myself. And our email for students is iadvisor@unm.edu. And I'll talk a little bit more about our services later. I just wanted to share, I mean, as you can imagine, there is a lot going on in the world with the global pandemic happening. And so I just wanted to take a minute to sort of talk briefly about that. And we'll talk about some specifics, visa issues and other kind of immigration issues for students a little later on. But just to let you know, we had 215 students admitted for spring, 123 of those enrolled, which is actually larger than a usual spring enrollment. And it's mostly because the students who had to defer from fall because they couldn't get here, some of them ended up being able to show up for the spring semester. So we're up 27% from last year's spring semester, except for exchange students and intensive English students have been down. These are our numbers from spring. We had 71 graduate students, 32 undergrads, 14 exchange and non-degree, and 7 intensive English student starts. They were all over in terms of disciplines, 33 majors and 37 countries represented. Now, some of those students actually started remotely from home, but some of them were actually able to make it here. Many of those students, however, were coming from other institutions in the US. So that's kind of how we ended up in spring semester. We're definitely down overall, but we're hoping that we can build that back up. And with that, I'll turn it over to Melissa to talk about our admission efforts in that regard.
Great. So you guys might hear my dog and my dogs in the background. I think the mailman's coming through. So just apologies for that in advance, but I'm sure there might be a little bit of a ruckus happening in a minute. Yeah. So as far as international admissions go, Linda, if you want to move forward another slide, that'd be great. Let's talk about our recruitment efforts this year. It's been a little bit different, as we all know the unprecedented times that we're going through. No need to go into too much detail, but it really has helped us launch a lot of new virtual recruitment efforts. So things that are really taking place now and have really gotten a good hold in because of necessity is that we're doing a lot of targeted digital media recruitment. This means Facebook and Instagram ads directed to students directly or who are pinging in or whose location is in India, Vietnam, UAE, and Nigeria. That's already happened, and we are looking at other countries and what might be good options to reach out to students who have interest in studying in the US. In addition to that, Pablo and I have been doing a lot of virtual tours and virtual info sessions all over the world. I was in Malaysia this morning. Pablo was in India last week. And while it's a little bit different to be doing it from our home offices, we are reaching out to many, many students. So we've been in touch through these virtual fairs to students from China, Nepal, India, Vietnam, Malaysia, Mexico, Myanmar, Colombia, Ghana, Cameroon, Kenya, and South Korea. So we really are still ramping up our efforts, and it's while it's business is different, it's business as usual. We have also instituted, like I said before, one-on-one virtual appointments for students to be able to meet directly with an admissions advisor to talk about any questions that they may have during the application process or as they've become accepted in any step along the process. As always, we have our UNM office in Mexico that recruits heavily and works with students in Mexico and throughout Latin America. We continue with our partnership with the Fulbright program. And then Armchair Recruiting has changed a little bit. So we still do the social media Skype initiatives and then the one-on-one Zoom meetings with many different students. We first launched that actually at the beginning of the year. And I think at one point, Pablo himself was having like up to 16 students a day that he was meeting with. So it's really active and students are really interested in speaking with an advisor. And from what I hear, not a lot of universities are doing that right now. So it's a really good way to reach out and connect with students. We always do, or we have been doing our Salesforce and email campaigns, and those are still very active. We're also launching a student ambassador program, and that's in the works right now. So it's really about connecting current students with prospective students or students who have been recently admitted so that they can ask the questions that maybe aren't necessarily appropriate for an admissions advisor. Stuff about life on campus, best restaurants, and just to really get an idea of what it's like living in Albuquerque as a student. So with that said, those are all very general things, and we try to be specific as possible. As far as learning from your departments and your programs, it's always nice if you guys have, elevator pitches or material that you'd like to send to us. We are happy to accept it. Usually we try to take some stuff with us when we go to actual locations when we were traveling. But if you have any kind of flyers that you'd like to share with us or websites that you'd like to link us to, that would be really helpful. And it kind of helps us speak with students and become more informed about your programs and just like what's going on with your department in general. We are really interested if anybody has detailed questions after this or would like to meet with any of us. We're happy to do sessions with you or anyone in your department, either about application processes or just learning about one another, just to kind of get an idea of how we can work and how we can work better. Excuse me. So we are working in OnBase a lot right now. Right now we have ways for students to be able to submit their IELTS exams, passports, and financial documents. So IELTS exams will be submitted by the student during the application process, usually before review by your department. Once they're accepted, we request their passport and financial documents. So and that's again after. And then if a student needs to defer for whatever reason, which we have seen a fair amount, as you know, in the last year, we also have a deferral form available for a student to fill out on OnBase. In previous semesters, they would email us, but we found that we just have such a high volume right now that the form has been really helpful to get us through those requests faster. So those are more for your students in the application process. If students need to change addresses or update their visa immigration status, we also have OnBase forms for that as well. So this is the very infamous international admission decision form. Just a quick refresher for those of you who have been doing this, or if you're new to it or don't see many international students, this is an example of what it looks like. At the top above this cut is your department and information about the semester that the student will be applying to and the program they're applying to, as well as their name and ID number. When your department has rendered a decision, you'll be going into the form and filling out the terms of their admission. So if they are being nominated for the Amigo, clicking yes, if not, clicking no. And if they get an assistantship, clicking yes, and then the terms of it. We need this information in order to issue a student's immigration documents showing that they have, so if they have a assistantship, it's important to know what the value of the assistantship is in order to help with those immigration documents. They have to show their funding for the first year of their attendance at university. And so this helps determine if they need to provide additional documentation for that. So you will fill out those things, either yes or no, click admit, or if sadly they won't be coming, refuse or cancel. If you choose to refuse a student, that means that they are ineligible to defer their application at a later process. If the student is canceled, they could elect to defer at a later time. And I'll go into that in another slide. So right now our current cost of attendance is $38,089. I've listed the breakdown for you below. If students are going to be coming with dependents, they need to provide an additional amount for their immigration documents. So that's $6,000 for a spouse and $4,000 for the child. So deferring, like I said, we have a new deferral form. It's linked here. They can also email us and we can get that form to you or to the students. So feel free either way. Right now, students are able to defer from 3 semesters from the original application. So students who applied in fall 2020, the last semester they have to defer is fall 2021. We are going to see what happens with the current state of affairs, and are going to be monitoring to see what the options are as far as extending that to another semester. But right now, we are planning on doing a 3-semester deferral. So I-20s, after a student is admitted, the next step is they accept it, and then they work on immigrating to the United States or to getting their visa appointment. A student needs an I-20 document in order to create or to request an appointment with their officer in their country. And that information is going to contain the terms of their admission. So primarily, and what we really see and focus on is their financial or their ability to cover the costs for their first year. So when they receive their I-20, they will take that to their visa appointment along with a lot of other documents, their admission letter and other proof of basically of seriousness for studying in the US. So basically showing that they intend to come back to their home country after study, that they do have ties to their home country, stuff like that. So while our part is kind of a main part of the visa process, there are other things that a student is preparing for. So what happens is after they accept their admission and we have all of their documents, they'll receive their I-20 in about a week or two, especially during this busy time. I think I'm going to be issuing about 15 I-20s tomorrow, so it's a very busy time for us. If students are not planning on coming to the US in an F visa, which is usually the standard visa that they will come in, another visa type is a J visa. Sometimes if they're being sponsored by a government, the government will request that they have a J visa just because it has different terms about returning to their home country and staying in the US, stuff like that. Other students may be already in the US under different visas. So, you know, every student is special and has their own circumstances. But if you find that they're, you know, if you have any questions about visa or stuff, definitely reach out to us or to Linda's team. All right, let's talk more money. So Amigo Scholarship is the thing that it's the funding opportunity for students who are qualified but may not be able to get funding for assistantships. So this is done entirely through, or the nomination process is done entirely through the graduate departments. As graduate departments, you guys get to pick who you want to receive the Amigo. However your nomination committee goes, also consider our students for the Amigo. It offers them in-state tuition, which is a huge plus for students coming from out of the country who can get that funding opportunity. Who is eligible? Anyone doing a degree granting program except for online programs. So like you saw with the nomination process, you'll go through, or with the on-base process, you'll go through and check that they're nominated for the Amigo. We do try to keep them awardees representative of the international population. But if you have any questions about, you know, how many you think that your department will be able to offer, reach out to us and we can give you a better understanding of how that works, or maybe how many you would be able to offer in good conscience. That sounds weird, sorry. Yeah, so we do try to keep it proportional. It's a mix of that proportion and a first come, first serve basis. So we award nominees every 2 weeks to every month. And so as soon as the Amigo nominee is sent out, we work on getting that to the student. So when we send our offer email, once we receive the decision via OnBase, we reach out to the student saying that that they're accepted by the program and that they either have or have not been awarded the Amigo or an assistantship. And then we list the things that we need: financial responsibility forms, so the proof of funding, and then any proof of support, as well as passport and other documents. One thing to note is that students can not have an Amigo and an assistantship at the same time. And students who are offered an assistantship and then do not keep the assistantship in future semesters cannot receive the Amigo. So the Amigo can only be awarded to incoming students, and they cannot get it at a future time. So if you think that you will be awarding a student an assistantship maybe for a year, just it might be helpful to let the student know, just so that they can plan whether it's better for them to take the Amigo, which could last them their full term, or the assistantship for one term and then losing funding. In order to keep the Amigo, they have to have a 3.0 GPA and enrolled in full-time credits. So that's for grads, that's 9 credits every semester. We do have students who can get undergraduate coursework counting for the Amigo, as long as it meets certain requirements, basically prerequisites or coursework towards their degree. Again, they can't have an assistantship and the Amigo scholarship simultaneously. But if you do want to employ them, you can consider employing them on an hourly basis. So how the Amigo scholarship works is we generally, for fall semester students, we start notifying students of the Amigo on February 15th. So anybody who has been accepted to the program on February 14th or earlier will get an email on February 15th saying that they've received the Amigo. After that, every 2 weeks, we will send out another batch of emails for people who have been accepted into the program between February 15th and February 28th. So every 2 weeks after that. It is a first come, first serve basis in the fact that we will stop. There is a limit to how many Amigos we can give out, but we will offer it until we hit that limit. So right now, our next batch is set to go out on April 15th. And then after that, we will determine how many people have accepted that offer to see if we can keep going into future batches. So it's similar for spring. We start doing that on September 15th, October 1st, October 15th, et cetera, et cetera. That one's much more condensed because it's the timeline is more condensed for a student to be notified in September and then to come in January versus being notified in February and having all the way till August to come. All right, so we are in the process of wrapping up. I need a water break, so this is going to be good for me. So if you guys have any questions, I'm happy to answer them now. You can always reach out to us at goglobal@unm.edu.
And I'll just stop sharing so people have an opportunity to ask any kind of questions about admitting international students or the Amigo scholarship.
I wanted to jump in. So once we offer a letter internally to an international student, we usually say, okay, now reach out to GEO to start working on your visa. Is that the right move, or do you all reach out directly? Is there a specific place I should send them to or person I should send them to?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think I might have seen that email because the student will forward it to us as well. So the process for us is we will reach out to the student once we have the on-base form in our system and have processed that. So they don't necessarily need to reach out to us, but it is kind of helpful just to put it on our radar, and is kind of a safety check just in case for whatever reason on-base has an issue or it gets lost somehow in the back and forth transferring. So I'm not saying it's a bad thing. But yeah, we do reach out to them as soon as we receive the decision and then calculate the terms of their admission as far as the finances go. They'll hear from us. Usually right now we're a little bit backed up, so it's taking about a week from the decision form to reach out to the student. Hopefully in other semesters, it'll take a little bit less time than that.
Okay, perfect. So on-base triggers you all reaching out, and then it doesn't hurt for me to also suggest that they do.
Correct. And I think, I don't know if it's your department, but I think the email says geo@unm.edu. You're welcome to, if you want to have that contact, I would say to email goglobal@unm.edu. Geo, it will get to us, but it goes through another person first. So there's just a little bit of delay.
Okay, go global at unm.edu.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
We have all these internationally typed emails. So it's Go Global for the admissions team, IN advisor, which means international advisor for the ISSS team, and then Geo is the general email for Geo.
And when in doubt, Geo at UNM it's perfectly fine. It's just gonna get filtered to the right department.
I just want to say there's two things actually in the chat, Melissa. So Julia's saying, don't forget the new UNM grad video that's on their webpage, which I haven't seen. So I'm looking forward to that.
Oh yeah.
And then Carol says, I'm fairly new to graduate admissions. Our department's notified which students are awarded an Amigo scholarship.
Carol, that's a great question. So we award our amigos based on who you suggest should get awards. So that is a good starter list to go by. If you want to check in with us in the middle of the semester or towards the end of your review process to see who has accepted the amigo, we're happy to pull that list for you. And in fact, I'm actually going to give you another email to reach out to, which, another email, who needs one? So if you have specific Amigo questions, as always, reach out to goglobal@unm.edu or Charlotte Saavedra. And she's the person in admissions who's really championing the Amigo process right now. So her email is csav3@unm.edu, but it's
CSAVE2. I'm trying to look it up.
CSAVE2. I will put it in the chat.
Yeah, I was trying to do that, but let me just double check before I say that.
CSAVE2.
It's CSAVE02@unm.edu. Yeah, there you go.
I beat you.
And I just want to say that, that we tell the students too, like we have a lot of like current students who might be, who might be asking about, can they get the Amigo for the next level? So they can get it if they go up a level. And so they can be awarded again. Sorry, I'm like having problems with our Geo emergency phone.
Oh no, your vehicle's getting out of warranty?
I know, I was trying to shut it up, but anyway, I have the emergency phone right now.
Yeah, Linda, you make a good point. So students, like say there is a international student who's a current undergrad, they can be awarded for a graduate Amigo and continue on receiving a different Amigo or a new Amigo award. If you have a current graduate student who received the Amigo, is graduate, say they're a master's student and they're going for their second master's, they are ineligible because they can only receive it for one level. So, or they can only receive the award for one degree at a certain level.
Right. Yeah, one time per level. And they, the other thing that I wanted to mention is there is a petition process if they lose the Amigo. So if they started on the Amigo and then they were offered an assistantship and then the assistantship did not continue, they can petition to have it reinstated. But they can't get it fresh is what Melissa was trying to say before. So like if somebody starts with an assistantship, they can't be awarded the Amigo later because it is a recruitment scholarship. It's a legislative scholarship from the state of New Mexico, actually, that we are calling the Amigo. But it's, it can only be applied to new students because it's supposed to be recruiting students to the state. So, but if when in doubt, like if you think, we're also doing it in that representative fashion for departments, but when in doubt, even if you think you've nominated too many people, nominate more. Because actually right now our number is fairly low on the Amigo because our numbers are going down. So, so I would just say, if you want to have the student, but you don't have assistantship funding, propose them for the Amigo.
Yeah, especially with so many students unable to come in the fall, we do have a lot of Amigos available. So you're right. Don't hesitate. The worst you can do is nominate, and they don't. Yeah, just nominate them.
Elisa saying, will the application fee for international students be increased in the near future?
Yes, and it will go straight to my bank account. Um, we don't have, there has not been talks at my level for it to increase. Right now it is $70. And I know that the domestic one is going up. So we are getting closer to being, I think it's $60 and $70 domestic and international at this point, or soon. But no, we have not talked about increasing the fee.
Yeah, domestic is now 60 is what Julie's saying. Anyone else have? Go
We
ahead.
we do have a lot of students who are interested in waiving that fee. Unfortunately, we are unable to waive it, but if you do have students who you want to go to bat for, we do have a process for departments to pay for the application fee. So if you would like to do that, just let us know what students you're interested in, and we can give you the information for the JV transfer.
Any other questions about, I know some of you guys are new, any other questions about international admission versus domestic admission, process questions, anything? Or recruitment?
Just a broad overview. So international, as far as like requiring documents and stuff, ultimately it's your department who has the say on GREs and GMATs and stuff like that. If you're waiving them this year, we tend to send them to you for that just because that is department specific. Our requirements for a student to be eligible for admission to the university in the graduate level is that they have an English proficiency score. Either IELTS, Duolingo, or TOEFL. Those are the three most popular ones and the ones that we recommend, as well as obtaining a bachelor's degree or in the process of obtaining a bachelor's degree from an accredited university in their home country or around the world. So as long as it's an accredited university, be it a 3-year, 4-year, 5-year program, as long as it's a bachelor degree, we consider them admissible. We only review for unofficial documents, and then they would provide their official documents when they're offered admission.
Tara is saying that they're starting to budget for waivers, like fee waivers. So the department, I guess the department is paying. So if there is going to be any increase, giving people a lot of lead time is important so that they can budget for that.
Absolutely.
Other questions before we go on to other stuff?
I have a question. Are you able to, thank you for the information so far. Are you able to speak on MOUs at all?
In particular, what?
I'm not sure. I'm still trying to figure it out. I understand that like AMRITA, there's certain ones that are out there, and just determining, you know, which students are on the list, who's not on the list. We've had a few that I guess were exempt that weren't showing exempt, or that were showing exempt that weren't. And I'm just trying to determine the best way to.
I can comment a little teeny bit on that. So we do have several X+Y agreements with certain universities abroad where they're kind of doing a combination of courses in their home institution and courses here to get a degree, either here or in other places. Usually when it's here, it's an X+Y degree. And we do have one with AMRITA. We do have some with the Beijing Institute of Technology and Zhuhai, mostly with Anderson and with engineering. It is tricky because it's really hard to track these students individually. And we also have multiple agreements with the same institution. So example, you cited AMRITA. AMRITA has an exchange agreement, which is somebody who's coming here just for a semester or a year, like as a non-degree student, a non-degree exchange student. And then we have like one that is like an X+Y where they're actually going to get the degree. So the best thing, you know, at this point, we're tracking all of those things, but you can email Go Global to admissions and ask the question of who's on the agreement. You know, unfortunately, there's not a good streamlined communication for us either. Like the admissions team is constantly like, okay, is this student part of the agreement or not part of the agreement? So we have the same issues that you guys do. But yeah, sending an email when in doubt is probably the best course of action. Then we could just email the university directly if we don't know. Okay, anything else before we move on? Okay, all right. Well, thank you, Melissa. And if people have more questions, you guys can email Go Global, and we can also, if Melissa's staying on, we can, if they come to you, the questions, you can go ahead and continue to ask those. I'm gonna,
If I could just,
Yeah.
if I could just say one more thing,
Yeah.
if you are interested, we would really love to, meet and work with your department a little bit more. So if there is time for you or anyone in your department who wants to come and chat with our advisors about, new initiatives, and then we can talk about the admission procedure and ways to help streamline between our office and yours and your office in communication with the students, please feel free to reach out to us. We would love to have that communication going. And thank you again for having us. And with that, I'll turn it back to Linda.
Yeah, and I would just add to that, I would just say, we're looking for places where there's a real interest in the University of New Mexico. The initiatives that Melissa mentioned, we found that there's a lot of searches from on the University of New Mexico from the country of Nigeria. So they're planning some targeted materials. If you, in particular, your department gets a lot of requests from a specific country, that would be really great to share as well with us so that we could target those individuals and maybe provide them more information about the university. So we are trying to increase our numbers. So that would be really helpful. Okay, so International Student and Scholar Services, this is our team. That's our direct lines, which now bump to the front office. Our email is iAdvisor, as I said before. And we also have a new website that we are doing a slow rollout with. So all of the incoming students have been directed to this new website. It's iSSS.unm.edu. We are still tweaking the current student stuff. So we're kind of, like Melissa said, we're kind of in between the GEO website and this new website right now. But if you want to take a look at it and give us any feedback, we are still tweaking, like I said, the information that's on there. We are doing most of our advising virtually, and we expect that to kind of continue through August as with the rest of the university. And then to try to be swinging back into in-person operations. But as everybody else, we found that, there are some conveniences with the virtual environment. And so we will be continuing to offer virtual options even when we go back in person. So right now, if somebody wants to talk to an international advisor, they have a lot of different options. They can either call the front office, the GEO front office is 277-4032, and people are answering the phone Monday through Friday, 8 to 5. They can schedule an appointment, they can handle an emergency, anything like that. They can also make an appointment at the GEO website, and that's our Calendly link. And there's appointments for different things, dropping off and picking up documents, or meeting with an advisor, or a J Scholar coordinator, a J Scholar coming in, getting an orientation, et cetera. We also have a live chat feature that's on our main website as well. And then advisors we do a talk-in hours. We used to do walk-in hours. So now it's talk-in hours, Tuesdays and Thursdays, just for an hour in the afternoon. That's like a free form. If a student just thinks of a question and wants to tune in, they can do it on that date if they don't want to schedule an appointment. So that's how we're advising students, and we are going to continue to advise. We're going to offer students an option when we go back. They could meet in person. We could call them on a phone appointment, or we can do a Zoom appointment. So we found, as I was saying earlier, that some things students are more attending with the virtual environment, some things less, some things more. So I'm sure many of you are wondering about immigration issues and travel updates. Of course, in the middle of a global pandemic, we have been really suffering in terms of trying to help students navigate all the difficulties with international travel and with restrictions presented by the pandemic. So as a general theme, we've seen a decline, as has every school in the country, because of this pandemic. And in general, the problems are around the travel, the visas, the changing government regulations, which determine what a student needs to enroll in, whether it has to be in person or face-to-face, and then whether they can make it here on time. And most new international students who were able to get here, as I said before, in both fall and spring, were coming from other institutions in the US. And a lot of our own students, our own undergraduate students, were going on to graduate programs because it wasn't a good time to go out into the workforce or to go, to go somewhere else. So we've it's been sort of a shifting environment in terms of enrollment. The overall issues for international students that have to do with travel and visas are these three things primarily. So there are travel bans that are still in effect for people coming from specific countries if they've been there in the last 14 days. And I'll tell you some more details on that. Embassies and consulates have still not resumed normal operations worldwide. Of course, this is varying country to country, but I think as an overall statement, things are still not back to normal. And in some places that's ebbed and flowed. In other places, it's been complete closure and has not reopened. And China is a big example of that. We also have a sizable population from Nepal, and they also have not opened embassies worldwide. And I'll talk a little more about that. And then enrollment requirements have been difficult because there have been rules introduced and rules rescinded about what international students need to enroll for. And we still don't know what's happening for the fall semester. So I'll talk a little bit about all of these three things in detail. So first of all, the travel bans during COVID, and I forgot to put this on the slide. In addition to the bans, anybody who's coming to the US now, including you guys, need to have a negative COVID test within 48 hours of your flight. If people are coming from a destination that's a tourist destination, I understand that a lot of places like Cancun are making testing service very readily available at the airport, so you can come up with a fast negative COVID test before you get on your flight home. But there is the COVID test provision that I did not put in these slides that is required for entry to the US now for everybody. But in terms of the travel bans, there are some presidential proclamations that were instated by the Trump administration that are still in effect from the Biden administration. And then there was South Africa was added to the list by the Biden administration. So what this means is if a person has been in any of the affected countries in the last 14 days, doesn't matter if they're from there or not, they can't enter the US unless they're given special clearance. So for US citizens and residents, that's not the case. They can fly with a negative COVID test. But for other individuals who are entering on visas, they will have to either get a special clearance, which is called a national interest exception, or they will have to go to a different country for 14 days before they can enter the US. So the countries that are affected by these proclamations are anything in the Schengen region, which is most of Western Europe, and you can just Google Schengen countries, the UK and Ireland, Iran, China, Brazil, and now South Africa as well. And so if a person has been to these countries in the past 14 days, they are prohibited from entering the United States. If they're coming on a student visa, they may be eligible for what's called an NIE, a national interest exception. That is both for applying for a visa, but also for traveling if they have a valid visa. They can get an emergency appointment at a consulate or apply for one if their visas are not valid. But those visa appointments are spotty in terms of what consulates are offering emergency appointments and what consulates are not. We have seen national interest exception be applied to people coming from Western Europe. So we had a bunch of students entered for spring who came through Europe and they were allowed to fly. But we still have not seen any from China or Brazil or Iran. We do have students who came in spring semester who went to another country for 2 weeks. So we had Brazilian students who went to Mexico for 2 weeks and then flew in. We had Chinese students who went to Singapore, got their visas and waited in Singapore for 2 weeks and then flew in. So, this is one workaround that students have been able to access, but it is very tricky and complicated. And the one thing I didn't add is that if you're entering from Canada or Mexico, you cannot enter by land. That is also banned, but flights from Mexico and Canada have been allowed. All right, so that's the travel issues. The visa issues are, again, that most embassies and consulates have not resumed normal visa processing. And further, they're really backlogged with the people who had already scheduled appointments who have now been delayed and delayed and delayed. So students can request an emergency appointment. Some consulates are still not taking those emergency appointments, or they will only book them 2 weeks before a person's program is going to start. China, as I said, is the biggest issue right now. And they are estimating that students who had prior appointments, who they've been deferring the appointments, will not get appointments until approximately August. So in other words, they're already booked up through August if they open. So there's a lot of effort right now on the part of different advocacy groups, which I'll talk about in a minute, to get the State Department to make some provisions that will alleviate these pressures of visa appointments, which I'll talk about in a second. And then the third obstacle for international students is the enrollment requirements. We get questions daily about this. What am I going to have to enroll in? Is the university offering face-to-face classes? So far, UNM is on track to offer face-to-face classes for fall semester. We have not heard differently. There is a push to get us all back in person. Last summer, as many of you know, Department of Homeland Security published a rule that said anybody who was studying online had to go home. Then they rescinded that rule, which created a lot of panic and turmoil. And there has yet been no announcement for fall 2021. So for fall 2021, we still do not know if the regular requirements will be in effect. And the regular requirements are that international students must enroll in face-to-face classes. The majority of their coursework should be in face-to-face. And what that means is, as a graduate student, your normal credit hour limit, if you have no assistantship, is 9 credit hours. So 6 have to be in person and 3 or more have to be face-to-face. If they have an assistantship, 3 would have to be in person and 3 or more would have to be face-to-face. So it really depends on what's considered full-time for you, but only 3 credit hours of your full-time minimum is allowed to, under normal circumstances, be in online classes. So we're still not sure what's going to happen for fall. If the current exceptions or the current rules remain, what is currently in place due to COVID is that anybody who's a continuing student, so that would mean anybody who entered before March of 2020, can do everything online. But anybody who entered after March of 2020 has to have some face-to-face requirements. So we are trying to figure out, we're trying to help through fall and spring. We try to help students get into something that was face-to-face. And in some cases, we're asking your departments to write letters saying that they were doing research that was face-to-face so that we could make sure that they met that requirement. So those are really the three obstacles. As of right now, students who are continuing to study in the US would be permitted to continue online if that was what was happening in the fall. New students would still have to have something that was face-to-face, and we are expecting that they will give us some kind of guidance before fall semester. But if they don't give us guidance, the current rules will still apply. One thing that is really important for you all to know is that a person, to accept an assistantship, a student has to be here, has to have started here. In other words, they have to be in legal F1 or J1 student status. And the reason is that they have to show valid status to complete the I-9 requirements. And Marissa might be able to answer questions about these. The I-9 requirements right now they're allowing virtual verification of documents, but you know, they are projecting to go back to in-person verification for I-9 to be employable. So students who are maintaining their F4J status, so that means they entered as a student in F4 or J status, but then they may have left or they may still be here. Those folks can still continue to work remotely, so they can still continue on an assistantship. But if they're a brand new student, they have to enter the US to be in F1 status to accept the assistantship. And then, of course, if we're continuing with the same COVID rules that have been in place, they would have to have some kind of face-to-face component. So this is tricky, I realize, and I'll pause after this section so people can ask general questions before I move on. As I mentioned, there is an advocacy campaign pretty heavily in place. We are not the only school enrolling international students. We have schools that are heavily dependent on international student enrollments, such as NYU and other schools that have more than 10,000 international students. So they are pushing heavily on behalf of different international education associations. In particular, yesterday I watched a webinar from the President's Alliance on Higher Education and Immigration, and they are arguing with the State Department, they're negotiating with the State Department for increased resources for consulates to be able to entertain more visa applications, and also the ability to waive visa interview requirements, which is offered only under, basically under duress, because the consulate is supposed to see everyone for a first time visa appointment, but they're trying to get some workarounds done so that perhaps visas can be issued more quickly this summer, given the constraints of COVID. They're also asking the Department of Homeland Security to really allow for flexible enrollment requirements for fall, and to provide an early announcement about whatever their rules are that they're going to be enforcing, so that we are not all left in the dark with students kind of scrambling at the last minute trying to figure out whether they're going to attend or whether maybe they'd rather go to the UK or somewhere else that is still allowing students to enter or providing visas without obstacle. So there's a lot of advocacy going on. Okay. And then these are some other issues that don't have to do with immigration, but I just wanted to remind people that student family housing is closing. The closure was, the move out was extended to June, so students would have more time to look for new places. We did hold information sessions with those students, but I just wanted to remind people because it's going to be much more costly for students to live in Albuquerque now. The rents are going straight up, and people with families are likely to have much tighter budgets. Everyone's likely to have a much tighter budget on the assistantships that we are offering due to the higher cost of rents in Albuquerque, but particularly with regard to families. Okay, I'm going to just pause there because I know I threw a lot of information at you, but before we kind of go on to programs and orientation, what's up about that, I just wanted to pause for people to be able to ask questions about visas or immigration or enrollment requirements. Or I think Marissa's still on here with us. If she is, maybe about assistantships and international students.
Yes, I'm still here. We don't really know what's going to happen with I-9s. I know that on, I believe it was Thursday, they extended it for another 3 months through, actually through the end of May, for us to be able to still do I-9s remotely. I don't know what's going to happen after that. I mean, everything's pretty much up in the air. We don't know if we're going to continue that or not. We don't know. I wish I had more answers for you.
One of the unintended consequences that's a positive factor is all those students that went home that are working from home, they're not paying taxes on the money that they earned there. And usually they pay way more tax than our domestic students. So
Oh, wow.
that's been a benefit. So they're getting better. Those folks are getting better tax returns than in normal years.
I did want to give just a quick reminder that we do have summer assistantship contracts due on April 26th, which is in about 2.5 weeks. And then I also wanted to ask grad advisors to, if there's a way that they can ask their students to either enter an emergency contact or look at their emergency contacts and update those. Those are really important. We had a situation where we needed to contact someone's emergency contact and they didn't have one. So that could be something regular. You can ask students once a year, twice a year, just kind of give them the heads up, just to update their emergency contacts.
And I would say that we also collect emergency contacts in the Global Education Office. So if you're trying to get a hold of somebody, you also can go through our office because we.
Okay, that's good to know.
Anyone have any questions about travel, visa, assistantship for international? Okay. All right, if you do, you can go ahead and type those in the chat and I will certainly get to those. So I'm going to share again. And I'm just going to talk a little bit about other kinds of services we've been providing and other things that you need to know about. So we have been providing tax help for international students and scholars. It's looked a lot different this year. We usually are in a computer lab in the Student Union building helping students. We do purchase software every year that we purchased again this year. But we're doing all of this remotely. So what we did this year was we sent a tax questionnaire to all international students. We had 441 people reply to that survey. And then we basically asked them questions so that we know what their tax situation is. We had a lot of people who are actually tax residents, you know, probably about 20, 25 folks. So we refer them on to other kinds of resources. We do run a VITA site, which is Volunteer Income Tax Assistance through IRS, so that we are all legit, but we also use this software. So we, and when they answered the survey, we then sent them a reply with individual instructions based on their tax situation. And most of those students who had income were able to use our Sprint Tax non-resident software that we buy. This is part of, we have a $125 student fee that we haven't raised in 15 years, but that's a one-time per program fee. And this is part of what we do with that fee is purchase this tax software. For the first time this year, the IRS made e-file available. They just did it like a week and a half ago. So some non-residents are able to e-file for the first time this year, which is a good thing for them. Then after they answered the survey and they've worked through the instructions, we are offering Thursday and Fridays to answer questions and to check their tax returns. And we're doing that from 1 to 4 in the afternoon. And we are supposed to finish tomorrow, although I feel like we're going to have to add one more session, probably on a weekend later on. If you weren't familiar, the new tax law that was passed by the Trump administration was really bad for international students. International students don't get the standard deduction. They can't count education credits, and they pay more taxes than domestic students because they pay from the first dollar unless they have a tax treaty. So about 14% of income for most of our international students. So sometimes the calculation with their W-4s really off and they end up owing money. Sometimes it's spot on. So usually for graduate students, it seems to be okay. For undergraduates and hourly jobs, we're finding that people are owing a lot of money this year, which is a sad thing for the students because a lot of times they don't have any surplus money to be dealing with that. We also have seen a lot of financial problems as fallout, specifically with the undergraduate population, because their parents have lost income. And we do have a small GEO emergency fund, which you can email us about. It's only $500 if you have a student who's in extreme need. So as far as incoming student information, I wanted to fill you in on what we're doing with all of your incoming students. So in our ISSS new website, there are menus at the top. It looks much more uniform. It's used with the CMS that is the UNM one. So you probably will be much more familiar with the navigation than with our old site. So there's a student link at the top and a scholar link at the top on red. So we have a mega menu there where you can click on it, and there's a whole section on coming to UNM, which has all of our dates and details on it. We are still emailing I-20s. We didn't say that earlier, but Melissa's team is still emailing people a link to download their I-20. That's another thing that was allowed during the pandemic that for now is continuing. There seems to be much more optimism that will continue beyond the pandemic, but I don't know that for sure. So they're still allowing us to email these immigration documents for F1 students. For J1 students, that's the category that Melissa mentioned is frequently used for government-sponsored students or Fulbright students. They are still requiring original documents with signatures, so we are still mailing those physically. And all of our exchange students, all of our research scholars are on those kinds of visas, so we're still paper mailing those. Students are being emailed all information where possible, so that I-20 plus all incoming information. And as I said, our website has been updated. So they're getting sent via email links to the admission letter, a comprehensive welcome letter, which is kind of like a brochure with a bunch of different information about different kinds of topics related to settling in here at UNM and in Albuquerque, housing information, and then they're also getting a campus map with different things marked on it. They're in the pre-arrival information, there's information about pickup, airport pickup and short-term homestays, which are offered through our a partner, a community Christian group that's called ISI. It's International Students Incorporated, and they do and have been and still are doing picking people up at the airport, giving them short-term accommodations. This whole past year, they were doing 14-day quarantine accommodations as well. So they're just gems. That information is all in the pre-arrival things that students receive. And I'll send it when I send the slides, I'll send you a sample of the graduate brochure. So you'll see that as well. In it is an arrival schedule and then the visa interview information, what they should talk about at the visa, along with a few other things that are relating to arriving here. And then we ask them to join our UNM Global Facebook group, our Instagram, so that they can get notifications that way as well. For our orientations, we are continuing with pre-arrival orientations as well as planning for a tentative in-person orientation. So we've divided students into grad, undergrad, and exchange groups for the online pre-arrival. Each group is being asked to join a team, our Microsoft Teams. So we have a fall 2021 orientation group on Microsoft Teams, which I can send you guys the link if you want to join too. It has 5 orientation modules that cover things like an overview, as well as, you know, immigration rules, work rules, et cetera. So there's some recordings and some slides and some handouts on that team that all the new students can access. We are doing these 3 dates for pre-arrival orientations. So some students will be admitted before, fully admitted and given I-20s before the first orientation on the 30th. Some will come in afterwards. But on April 30th, we're doing sort of an overall welcome and preparing to come to UNM, where we're reviewing lots of different things like how to navigate My UNM, how to set up your ID if you haven't done it already, and things like that. And then on May 28th, we'll delve a little bit more into immigration work and academic subjects, mostly academics, and again, navigation of some of the online systems. And then June 25th, we'll cover health insurance and arrival information so that they have more, you know, hopefully timed in-time orientation information for them. And we also entertain all kinds of questions during those pre-arrival things, like what do they have to enroll for? What do we know so far about visas, et cetera. When they arrive in the US, they're going to then sign up for a check-in, which we're going to do virtually. We have been doing these virtually. What they do is they upload a bunch of their information to our system, update their personal addresses, emergency contacts, and all of that we have to have, our immigration requirements, as well as provide health insurance proof. If they're on an assistantship, we know that they have health insurance. Students who come to check-in are also given other kinds of information, like how do you apply for a social security number, how do you apply for a driver's license, I-9, and all of that other specific information we're offering through the check-ins. And we're going to continue to do those virtually, because when a student has their own computer, it's a little bit easier for them to kind of tag along and follow along with the information and click on the links. So then we are trying to get back to in-person delivery eventually, just to sort of make that personal social connection with international students. You know, students have been doing okay, but it's, you know, we really feel like people don't have international students in particular, coming from somewhere, you know, halfway across the planet, need a personal connection. So we do have a tentative plan for an in-person orientation. Since we will be giving a lot of the information before arrival, we're trying to do this as a half day this time, and we're still not sure if we're going to be able to provide food or anything like that. So the half day allows us to dismiss people if we're not allowed to give food. So for graduate students, that's going to be Friday, August 13th from 8:30 to 12:30. So we'll have people, we'll sort of answer the most fundamental questions and answer those in person. We'll do a little bit of group exercises so that people get to know others. We have our undergrads in exchange on the 19th. And if those are not possible, we're going to expand our check-in to be a little bit longer so that we can cover more topics that we would have covered in the orientation. We are tentatively still planning for social events, but those are going to be based on COVID. We usually have a fall picnic, which we're hoping to be able to conduct. The receptions are a little bit of a harder sell because they're inside. So we're trying to return in the fall back to trips and other kinds of activities for students to try to get them connecting to each other. If you have students that are going to arrive late, it's important to remember to update Go Global, at our office, because we need to send them information, things like how do they defer. If a student is going to arrive after classes start, they're going to need a departmental letter on letterhead stating when they're permitted to arrive. Each of your departments has different sets of circumstances and may be able to make accommodations for somebody arriving really late. I'm giving like physics and optical sciences a shout out here because they have had in the past a number of Iranian students who have a hard time arriving on time, and they've been able to accommodate by allowing them, for example, to enroll for project hours, and then they can arrive really, really late. So we don't know those things, so we really rely on you to decide what is the latest a graduate student could arrive and still be a full-time student, because they must be a full-time enrolled student at the university in order to meet their visa requirements. So we can also, if they're arriving really late, send a revised I-20. If it's only like a day or two or even a week late, it's not going to be a problem for them to enter with the I-20 that they have. But if they're really, really late, it's better for them to have a revised I-20 with a new start date. But that letter, we're asking that the department send it because you're in the best position to know whether or not a student can still pursue full-time study after a certain date. It's important to also keep in mind that if they're a student on an assistantship, they have to arrive before the middle of the semester, because if they don't arrive before the middle of the semester, they're going to be responsible for paying the out-of-state portion of their tuition, which most of them cannot afford. So it's up to you to decide the late arrival date, but just keeping in mind that you wouldn't want it to be more than halfway into the semester if they're going to be arriving late. The last sort of logisticsy thing I think for arriving students is that they still have to, if they're getting an assistantship, they still have to get a social security number. They still have to go to the Social Security Administration on their own when they arrive. Those appointments are being scheduled now and they have to go in person still. And so they were really scheduling, like when students came in spring semester, they weren't getting Social Security appointments till February or March. So we're trying to streamline the processing for them. If you can send us this employment verification letter if they have an assistantship. So if you know that the student, even if you don't know the student's going to arrive, but you've offered an assistantship, this is what the form looks like. And I'll send it out when I send out the slides and the minutes from this meeting. But it's basically a form that they have to take to the Social Security office, which shows that they have been offered a position, that it is, signed off on by the supervisor. And then we have to sign the bottom of this form, attesting that the person has a job on campus and they need a Social Security number. So if you could provide those letters to us in advance, for all of your incoming students, we can give them out when we do that check-in, and then they can schedule their appointment and kind of go forward with getting the Social Security card. All right, a few more things on logistics for both current and incoming students. The health insurance, if a student does not have assistantship insurance, insurance through their assistantship, or they don't have a government sponsor with insurance, they're going to have to buy their own plan. We work with the state of New Mexico and insurance brokers to help students enroll in marketplace insurance. For 2022, New Mexico is starting its own marketplace, so students will not be buying this insurance at healthcare.gov anymore. They'll be going through the state marketplace. So it's kind of a difficult and complicated sign-up process, but it is the best insurance especially for older individuals, if they have to pay for their own insurance, because it is partially subsidized based on their income. So our brokers are still meeting students on Zoom and getting them signed up for that insurance. And we find out from check-in whether or not they need insurance, and then we recommend insurance. We do ask them to buy a short-term plan before for a travel plan, especially now during COVID, while they're en route, and then until their marketplace insurance or whatever insurance they buy will take effect. They need to have some insurance that will cover them. So this is in their arrival materials. We also will cover it in the pre-arrival orientation, and then we will help them do sign up. But they're asked to buy a short-term plan, Travel Med, that will go until September 30th because the marketplace insurance takes time to kick in. And we even ask students who have an assistantship to buy a short-term plan, like a Travel Med plan, that will go until the first day of classes, because their assistantship insurance does not start until the first day of classes. So we coach them through that, but if they ask you questions, they definitely want to have health insurance that covers them for emergencies or medical during that travel period. We are continuing with a lot of our programming efforts. Virtually has been this whole year, and we found that our workshops are better attended virtually because students don't have to make it physically to a place. So for all of our informational workshops, we're really planning on continuing those virtually for the next year at least, to see how that goes. We will do some cultural ones in person, but we have a team now, again, on Microsoft Teams. Students can ask to join, and I can put that link also, so you guys can ask to join, and we post all the recordings from all of our workshops. So we have next week our workshop that we offer every semester, which is with an immigration attorney. It's on work visas and permanent residency. This one is I just attached this image from last fall, but we do it every semester. And this one is on next Friday afternoon, and it's a local immigration attorney who's doing that. And our last one in fall, we had 75 people attend over Zoom. So they are quite popular when it has an immigration or work component. We are paperless for almost everything right now, except, as I said, the J-1 documents and other mail arriving from government agencies. So we're still doing individual tax ID numbers from IRS. We get Social Security cards. So people are still having things sent to us, and they can make an appointment to go in and pick it up physically at GEO. But most of our meeting with students and things are virtual. We are doing an International Festival way scaled down on Zoom. So we're just having people share a few cultural events. That is Thursday next week, the week after next, from 11 to 1 on Zoom. And then we are doing this cultural collaborative, which we have done for several years now with the Division of Equity Inclusion, Project for New Mexico Graduates of Color, ASUNM, GPSA. We're all collaborating on a diversity-related workshop every semester. And this one is on adapting together and how can we work together. We're going to have a panel that is talking about all of the social and racial justice movements that have occurred in the last year and what those mean. So we're going to have somebody talking about Black Lives Matter, the AAPI initiatives that are happening since the Asian hate incidents have risen. So we're going to be talking about all of those issues, and this is open to everyone. And please join us, and I will send that as well along after the meeting. So we're asking people to pre-register, and there are prizes. So if you want to join us for that, it will be on Zoom from 11 to 1 on the Friday, the 23rd. We still are doing our engagement programs. These are primarily for incoming students, but we recruit current students to be the mentor. We have this program called Lobo Friend, which is a buddy program where we match an incoming person with an experienced student, either a domestic or international students. We try to recruit a lot of domestic students for friendship, so that they have sort of an experienced person that they can ask questions to and get advice from. So that program continues, and we will be asking new students to sign up. And then we also have this International Service Corps, which we put on hiatus this semester, but it will continue in the fall, which gives students an opportunity to volunteer at UNM and in the Albuquerque community. And frequently what they're doing is classroom presentations on their country so that they're sharing information about their culture. And so again, as I said, I'll send out the PowerPoint presentation after this meeting. Our next meeting date is in November at the GradNet. And our international admissions team is going to try to contact, may reach out to you, or you can reach out to them so that we can try to get more international students to your programs. We're really hoping to work with you and try to rebuild what has kind of been damaged both by 4 years of an unfriendly administration and COVID, and hopefully we can build that back up to where we were in terms of welcoming international students, because we really do believe in the Global Education Office that these students really contribute to the diversity initiative, research and teaching at the University of New Mexico, and we really want to encourage and bump that back up to where we were headed, which was in an upwards trajectory and not a downwards trajectory before we were kind of given the 1-2 punch of the last 4 years in combination with COVID. Anyway, I see there's a question here from Elisa. Do you prefer the employment verification form be sent to GEO as a PDF attachment, or do you want the paper form? We can take it as a PDF. I actually prefer that you send it to me or iAdvisor, because it sometimes gets lost through GEO. So iAdvisor or Linda, and I could put my email in the chat, which you guys probably can look up on the directory, but yeah, so email those to me and we're sticking them in the student's record. Uploading them. We luckily went paperless before all the COVID happened, so we have access to people's documents via secure channels at home, which was quite fortunate. So any other questions? And Yvette's here. Yvette's one of our advisors, so she and I are the check-in people. So, and she's the document whiz and our CVIS manager. So,
Linda, this is
Yeah.
Marisa again. Thanks for mentioning about the late students and keeping you in the loop. We also request that if you have a student who has an assistantship is going to be late, that you also keep us in the loop, because it's sometimes we will email them 3, 4, 5 times and we don't hear from them, and they've already told the department, I'm not coming, or I'm going to be late. And we really appreciate it as soon as possible, as soon as you find out if a student is going to be late or is not coming, that you let us know. That way we can go ahead and stop the payment to the student, or work with y'all on changing their start date, because they're not eligible to start working until their I-20. So if they need an update on their I-20, then we all need to be kept in the loop on that.
yeah, and it's hard to streamline those things, but yeah, just kind of sending the email in all different directions is a good thing. So yeah, if the department gets it, just forwarding it to both Go Global and what's the email that you want them to forward it to, Marisa?
To assistantships@unm.edu.
Is that true for other grad students who aren't on assistantships? Does Grad Studies want to know, Julie or anyone, if they're deferring?
We don't need to know. I don't know if anybody else in Grad Studies needs to know. I think Julie's on.
I don't know that it's that important for us to know.
Okay, so it's if they have an assistantship, the department administrator should send it both to Go Global and Marisa if they're an international student. Just to Marisa if they're not an international student. It's kind of confusing.
No.
And just to Go Global if they're not on an assistantship. So yeah, sorry, not very streamlined, but oh well, what can you do?
Right, and we worked with students last year. I don't know what it's going to be like for this year. I know that if students came in late and they had to be quarantined, we did work with them on that. I can't tell you what the process is going to be, if there even is going to be a process, because I don't know that yet. But we'll try to communicate all that to everyone as soon as we know.
And I don't know if you guys have been talking about this at GradNet, but Julie, is there anything from the upper administration that we all should know about instructional offerings? Or, I mean, there's been some big news from Anderson that a lot of their programs are going online, which has been sort of created a little panic amongst international students. But I don't know if anybody else wants to comment. If you have a lot of your courses that are going to be online for fall, that is going to be an issue for international students, or potentially an issue for international students going forward. So if you could let us know sooner rather than later. Julie, I don't know, you're hearing anything at the,
I was just gonna say the schedule at the moment has 70% face-to-face classes for fall.
okay. And is that true like across the board for undergraduate and graduate classes, or that's just,
Across the board.
okay, all right.
That's what was presented to the Regents subcommittee. What is today? I'm trying to remember if it was this week or last week. It all blurs, you know? I think it was last week, but that was presented to the Regents subcommittee from the provost office, 70% face-to-face classes planned at the moment.
Okay,
And
good.
is that like full face-to-face or like the partial face-to-face?
Well, I don't know for sure of that, but
And do you know if they're keeping, I mean, I would imagine they are, but are they keeping the same instructional method classifications, the face-to-face, remote, face-to-face scheduled?
I thought they simplified it. I thought they were simplifying it so that there were fewer, but I'm not positive about that, Linda. And then I think just an overall word, the administration is being cautious. One thing we learned last year is that if you make a plan, it will change. And so it's hard to know what to expect. So I think our administration is being cautious, but I think they are thinking about things. And I know we're all anxious for a few more guidelines, especially as many of us have been vaccinated now. And I think they're coming, but they're going to stay cautious, and they're going to not put out too much because I think there's still uncertainty.
I have one more question for you that may be applicable to other people as well, which is, we've been researching whether or not we should be directing students, now that they're really opening the vaccine enrollment for people 16 and over, how, registering. I don't know if anybody at the upper administration, or I know that we have had international students signing up for the vaccine, getting vaccinated. I know that certain departments were encouraging that for graduate TAs, research assistants, anybody who has to be in person. Is there just been any kind of statement from upper administration about, trying to concertedly direct people to the vaccine so that they know where they can get it?
It's a great question. I would think if it came out from anybody, it would come out from the president's message, because her messages do indeed go to everybody that's affiliated with the university, students, staff, faculty. I think it's an interesting question, Linda. I also think there is some state law that at the moment would have to be flexed a little bit for us to require vaccines, or for us to even ask about vaccines. And I don't pretend to completely understand that, but that's what I'm hearing, is that given our current state laws, we're not really allowed to ask or require. But there is more information in the news about some universities requiring it.
Yeah. And
Fort Lewis College, which is a close neighbor to us, is one of the colleges that is requiring the vaccine. So, maybe all of that can change with executive action too. So I don't know.
Yeah, we talked about that at the beginning of the call. Rutgers, I know, is also doing that. There are several bigger name schools. So yeah, so mostly I just want to let everybody know that I'm planning on sending a message to international students about how they register for the state vaccine. My main concern at this point is it does ask for insurance information. And although I have been vaccinated and I have not been charged, I don't know whether or not there's going to be follow-up afterwards from the state. So I need to find out those things before we tell students to do it. Because they do make you a test, and many of you have done this on the website. They do make you a test that you have insurance, and then you'd be responsible for the bill, even though they don't seem to be, and billing. So I don't really know.
Can't they just go ahead and attest to the student health plan?
Well, for graduate assistantship students, yes. But we don't know what the co-insurance will be on that and whether or not, I don't know, Marissa or Julie, do you guys know if your insurance plan is covering the vaccine?
I thought the state was covering the vaccine, but
so did
maybe
I.
I am mistaken.
Yeah. Anyway, okay, well, we'll find out more and we'll be emailing students if they can get it.
Yeah, Linda, I was looking at the last communication that the president sent out, looks like on, well, this was March the 29th. So that was, I guess, last Monday.
Mhm.
She does talk about on her weekly perspective, she does say to make sure you registered with the Department of Health so you can be notified when it's your turn to be vaccinated. So she has sent it out to everyone,
Okay.
that information. So, I mean, she hasn't said that it's required or anything like that. I think she's just encouraging, giving them the information to go out and do if they choose to get the vaccine.
Yeah, thanks, Julie. And Anna is saying that the vaccine paperwork has you don't have insurance box, but then they have to test that everything is valid. So I don't want anybody who has insurance saying that they don't. We do have some students that are on this, that's what we call emergency only plan. And we know that it's not covered by those insurances. So I'm a little nervous about encouraging people to go get it when they might have to pay a big copay, but I'll figure it out and send it to people.
Thanks, Linda.
Yeah. Anybody else have any questions? Any questions at all? It's nice to see some faces. Oh, somebody says, admin assistant for oils, Chris Larnaga asked to attend. Yes, I can put those materials, I can send them to you as well. Let me write that down because it will quickly disappear. Yes, I will do that. Okay. Well, we also have this recording. Go ahead.
Linda, just a real note, if you're the host, when it asks you to save to the cloud. Okay.
Yeah, I did it to my desktop this time just because I've done it the last couple of times to my desktop simply because of that message. They keep warning us all that they're not going to maintain your recordings in the cloud.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, I will forward on the recording as well to the GradMed.
Okay.
It's a little large sometimes, so I'm not sure I
Right.
figure out how to condense it.
Yeah, and that's the issue I had. It took me an hour or so to figure it out. That's why I said just do the cloud. It'll be a lot easier.
Yeah. Too late. Sorry. Anyone else have a question? Nope. Going once, going twice. Okay, you guys have a great lunch, great summer. Hopefully we'll all go see each other in person sometime soon. Okay. Take care.